Hello friends, let's make this Cruella De Vil themed macarons. They're filled with red velvet cake and the roses are piped with buttercream, and I'm going to show you exactly how to make them. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching. Let's start by making the macaron batter. Place a bowl over a pan with barely simmering water. Add sugar and egg white powder to the bowl if using. The egg white powder is optional. Please read the notes below to find out more about it. Whisk the sugar and the egg white powder so it doesn't clump up. Add the egg whites to the bowl and whisk until the sugar has completely melted. It will take a couple of minutes. You can test by touching the mixture between your fingers, and if you don't feel any sugar granules, you can remove it from the heat. Transfer the syrup to the bowl of an electric mixer. Start whisking on low and then gradually increase the speed to medium. I like to whisk for about 30 seconds on low and then a couple of minutes on speed 4 and finish whisking the meringue on speed 6 of the KitchenAid. It takes me about 10 to 13 minutes to whip the meringue, but you should not go by the time, you should go by the consistency of the meringue. To know if the meringue is done whipping, keep your eye on the whites. Once they start to get glossy and you see that the meringue is raising in the center of the whisk, it might be time to stop. When you pull the whip up, the peak should be shooting straight up, not bending down to the side. And if you look on the bottom of the whisk, you should also notice that there are some waves forming on the bottom of the meringue. The waves are smooth and not chunky, but they're definitely defined. So if I show you the whisk like this, you can see them on the bottom. Now pour sifted powdered sugar and almond flour into the stiff meringue and start folding with a spatula. Fold the dry ingredients with the meringue just until you see no more dry ingredients in the meringue. As soon as you see no more streaks of dry ingredients, stop stirring. And we're going to divide the batter between two different bowls. You're going to need more white batter than black, so have that in mind. You could probably do about a quarter of the batter black and the rest white, but I didn't measure mine, I just eyeballed it. Work with one bowl at a time, leaving the other bowl covered meanwhile. So here we're coloring the black batter first. We are going to add black powder by the Sugar Art, and we're also going to add gel black food coloring. Start folding with a spatula. And here I already realized that I'm gonna need a little bit more black food coloring, so I'm going to go ahead and add it. Be careful at this point not to overmix the batter, because oftentimes people are gonna continue to add color in order to obtain a more vibrant tone. And we'll end up overmixing the batter in the attempt to obtain the desired color, so please have that in mind. We're just gonna fold the batter until the perfect consistency is achieved. The batter should be flowing off the spatula slowly and effortlessly, and you should be able to draw a few figure eights with the batter that's flowing off the spatula without having it break up. And even after the batter breaks up, it still continues to flow off the spatula slowly and effortlessly. Transfer the black batter to a piping bag fitted with a small round tip. Here I'm using a tip Wilton number 1. Now we can set this aside and we can work with the white batter. For the white batter, I have added white powder food coloring by the Sugar Art. And we're gonna do the same as we did before. We're going to fold the batter until the perfect consistency is achieved. The batter should be flowing up the spatula slowly and effortlessly, like I've said before. Also notice how long it takes for the batter that's falling back into the bowl to incorporate with the batter that's already there. It should take about 10 seconds or so. Now we're going to transfer the white batter to a piping bag fitted with a round tip. Here I'm using a 1/4 of an inch diameter piping tip, which would be the number 12 by Wilton. And let's start piping. Place the piping bag containing the white batter directly 90 degrees over the center of each macaron template. Apply gentle pressure and carefully pipe for about 3 seconds and then quickly pull the bag up, twisting slightly. Once you've piped as many circles as you could on this baking tray, we're going to pipe small spots with the black batter on the surface of the shells to form the Dalmatian pattern. Make the spots very small or you're going to end up with a cow pattern. Trust me, I'm speaking from experience here. I had to make this recipe 2 times because the first time I made it, the spots were too large and it resembled a cow pattern instead of a Dalmatian pattern. You can also try to form a little bean shape when you're piping. That also makes it look very Dalmatian-like. Bang the trays against the counter or against the palm of your hands to release any air bubbles, and use a toothpick to pop any remaining air bubbles that might be on the surface of the shells. Now we're going to let the tray sit so the shells dry. It's been taking me about 40 minutes to dry my shells. It depends on how humid the day is. Now we're going to make the red velvet cake for the filling. Beat the butter with a mixer. Now add oil and also add granulated sugar. Now we're going to add the egg and mix to combine. Now let's add vanilla and the red food coloring to the bowl and mix to incorporate. Now I'm sifting the flour, the cocoa powder, the baking soda and salt together, and let's add it to the batter in thirds, alternating with the buttermilk. I didn't have any buttermilk, so what I'm using here is milk mixed with a little bit of vinegar. That will do the trick, or you can just use straight up milk. After you add a third of the dry mixture to the batter, mix until incorporated. Then we're gonna add a little bit of the buttermilk to the bowl and mix until combined. Now let's add another third of the dry mixture to the batter and mix until incorporated. Now we're gonna add the remaining buttermilk to the bowl and mix. Followed by another addition of the flour mixture. Mix until combined. Now we're going to pour the batter onto a 10 by 15 inch jelly roll pan, which has been lined with parchment paper and greased. Bake the cake in the preheated oven for about 15 minutes or until a toothpick comes out clean when inserted in the cake. Remove it and let it cool down completely. Now let's make the buttercream. Start by beating the butter with an electric mixer at medium speed until smooth for a couple of minutes. With the mixer off, add the powdered sugar, and I also added a little bit of red powder food coloring to help make a very vibrant color. You can also use just gel food coloring if you want. Mix on low until incorporated. Raise the speed to medium-high and beat for another minute. Since I thought that the buttercream needed to have a little bit of a more vibrant color, add a little bit of red gel food coloring to deepen the color. At the end, you can add the vanilla and mix to combine. I forgot to add the vanilla, but that's okay. Now we're gonna transfer the buttercream to a piping bag fitted with a paddle tip number 101. Don't put all the buttercream in the piping bag at once because you're gonna be handling the piping bag for a while to make the roses, and that can make the buttercream get warm and soften up. So leave the remaining buttercream covered meanwhile, and then fill up the piping bag as you go. Now to pipe the roses. I like to use a flower nail to do this. Cut small squares of parchment paper, then place a tiny dollop of frosting on the flower nail and glue the paper on top. Place the piping tip perpendicular to the paper with the larger part of the tip on the bottom and the thinner part facing up. Make a cone as you spin the flower nail and apply pressure to release the buttercream. And then start piping the petals around by going up and down with the piping bag as you rotate the nail. It might take a couple of practices for you to get this right. Don't worry, it took me quite a few of them to get the rhythm of things. You only need a few petals because the rose cannot be too big for the macarons. Place each paper with the piped rose on a baking sheet and then place the baking sheet in the freezer and keep it in there. Let the roses sit in there until completely solid, and don't leave them out for too long or they're gonna start to get soft and it's gonna be very hard to handle them because they're gonna melt. And something very important to do is to wipe the piping tip on a piece of cloth or on a paper towel every now and then when you're piping these petals, otherwise they're gonna come out super messy. Now to assemble the macarons, we're going to use a small piping tip or a small round cutter to cut circles off the cake. And place the cake round on a bottom macaron shell. Use a small round piping tip to pipe some buttercream around the cake circle and then attach the roses straight from the freezer. Be quick when doing this because the roses may start to get soft and melt very quickly and they're going to be hard to handle. Pipe more buttercream on top of the cake and then place another shell on top. And then place the macarons in the refrigerator immediately. I really hope you enjoyed today's recipe. I had the best time making these macarons. For the full recipe, go to my blog, piesandtacos.com. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!